Ever feel like you can't stop clicking, scrolling, or watching? Ever have that back of your head voice telling you that you might need to change things up a little? Have you ever felt like you've lost ability to complete assignments on time, lost track of friends, or meant to do something and never quite get to it? I'm with the Counseling and Testing Center at Wichita State University, here to provide some brief info on how to unplug by defining a personalized level of healthy media use. Most of us have struggled at one point with overuse of media or technology, whether it be binge watching Netflix, gaming through the night, or scrolling through social media for hours upon end. We love our pastimes, and if we're honest with ourselves, we know we have a problem with them too. This presentation intends to shed some light on why we have difficulties with media and technology use, and what we can do to maintain a healthy pattern of interaction with them. We'll briefly cover the current status of clinical research on this topic, personal implications, and helpful concepts or techniques to use to regain control. We want to keep gaming, watching Netflix, and staying connected to social media, right? How can we do this and still live our lives? We live in the era of technology. It's tough, right? Everyone has their show, their game, their favorite app. Everyone seems to be connected and saying their piece on social media. For some of us, we haven't lived in a time where these technologies and social media outlets did not exist. We've always been plugged in some way or another. For others, these last several years have been an exciting change of pace with information everywhere you look. For all of us, technology and media is fun, but it can be absolutely overwhelming. There are pros and cons to technology and media use. Pro, we have more access to more information. Con, we can find ourselves having too much information, becoming overwhelmed. Pro, technology helps us be more productive. Con, technology also helps us efficiently waste time. Pro, we are more connected than we ever have been. Con, we may find ourselves overconnected at times. We as a global society have been wrestling with this for years and years. Is technology helpful? Well, yes, of course it is. But it comes with its inherent problems. Is technology all bad then? Well, no, not all bad. Here's the real question. How can we maximize on the pros while bypassing the cons? So what does the research have to say? In reading the clinical literature on this topic, we find a few main points of note relevant to our question. We know that technology and media helps us in many ways. Research confirms the presence of problematic technology and media use, typically focusing in on issues with video game use, use of online services, or use of computers in general. On the whole, research is largely inconclusive about the specific effects heavy media and technology use can have on human beings. Phew, you say. Good, so that means I have nothing to worry about and can resume my 8th hour of Game of Thrones today. Well, that's not entirely correct. The scientific literature is pretty unanimous in their understanding that too much use can cause problems. The disagreement comes with how to define pathological use, or how much is too much. Behavioral science seems to have consistent problems keeping up with the breakneck speed at which technology changes and develops. What we do know includes the fact that problematic media and technology use does exist. Scientific literature on the topic of media use and technology-related problems is still a relatively new area, and there's quite a bit of disagreement in how to think about and how to treat media use issues. Some researchers liken media tech problems to substance use addiction models, while others strongly disagree, suggesting that there are more similarities to compulsion models. Think gambling problems. The current diagnostic manual for psychology lists online game addiction as a topic for further study, meaning it's not a formal diagnosis, but will likely become a topic of discussion in behavioral health circles in the coming years. The suggested criteria for diagnosis, heavily borrowed from criteria of substance use addiction models, includes concepts such as 1. Preoccupation, or prolonged focus with difficulties attending to or thinking about other things. 2. Withdrawal, or experienced negative effects of being separated from media and technology use. 3. Tolerance, or the need for more to satisfy or fulfill subjectively experienced desires or need. 4. disruption in functioning in areas of social life, academic or professional duties, relationship roles, and financial responsibilities. And finally, the use of media and technology as a means of escape. While there is support for the use of these general concepts when examining problematic patterns of use, it is important to remember that research has not yet been able to fully define the nature of pathological media and technology use patterns, and most acknowledge that there is still much to learn. Despite some disagreement, the body of research continues to grow, and we are learning more each day. Currently, most research seems to be focusing on problematic video game use, but problems associated with heavy use of social media is becoming increasingly studied, as well as mobile use such as phones, tablets, and other tech we take with us. I predict we will see an increase in research studying the effects of virtual reality on individuals in the near future. You may be asking yourself, how is all of this relevant to me? I don't have a diagnosable problem, right? Most of us will not meet clinical level pathology, depending on how we define problematic use. When we learn about personal implications, it's less helpful to think of black and white categories. Yes, I do meet criteria, or no, I don't meet criteria. Instead, think, have I noticed any specific disruptive problems regarding my use patterns? Do I hang out with friends less? Would I like to be more productive? What do I want to do better or to change, and how does my current media and tech use positively or negatively affect this goal? I spoke to one individual recently who was discussing his difficulty with heavy gaming use. He loved to game. His friends gamed. He thought about video games a lot and wished he could play more. He felt relaxed in his element when gaming, and so he began playing for longer periods of time, until he started realizing he wasn't hanging out with his friends as much. He had trouble getting work done and wasn't finding time to do other things he enjoyed. In discussing this with me, he said that he felt like he wanted to keep playing but also didn't want to keep playing. A weird sensation. Something he said that day really intrigued me. He said, when I got stressed, I would play. I would game when I was bored and had free time. And then I realized, wait, there is no other piece of the pie here. That is 100% of the pie. The pie chart anecdote stuck with me. Of course, some of us may not have an issue with spending too much time with media or technology. But if we take a look, we might realize that we check social media in our free moments, as well as when we're tired, sad, happy, mad, bored, interested, not interested, needing a break, shouldn't be taking a break, etc. Is the whole pie taken over by our media use? Do we use technology and media as a primary means to take a break from others as well as to connect with others? Do we only have one way we commonly deal with stress? We communicate. We play, spend money. How might your use be taking over your pie? So, what can we do? Self-awareness of personal factors and use patterns is essential. Everyone is different, and we tend to interact with media and technology in different ways. Therefore, it's important to understand our own personal use patterns and contextual factors affecting these patterns. How do we use? When and where? And maybe the most difficult and important question, why? Many times we might play a game just for fun or check in on Twitter or Instagram just to see what's up. But true awareness looks deeper. Do you interact differently with media and technology depending on your emotional state or your mood? Does it make you feel better or worse in certain situations or in others? Consider the physical context as well as the emotional and relational contexts. Even if there's no history of significant problems due to technology and media use, have you noticed any disruptions in your relationships, your productivity, finances, or even physical or mental self-care that could have been connected to technology and media use? Challenging yourself through setting achievable goals is the next move. Seek to identify, what types of media and technology do I struggle with? How might my current media and technology use patterns be causing disruption in my life? Once you start to identify personal goals or specific problem areas, it will then be easier to focus efforts towards progress on these areas. As you are continuing to focus on learning about yourself and becoming more aware of your use patterns, begin to make intentional choices based on these findings. Here are some techniques you might use to help get things started, such as setting time limits, replacing with new activities, diversifying your pie by finding other ways to spend your time, new ways to connect with others, or additional means of coping. Another example of changing use patterns might involve efforts to revalue and place meaning on other activities, some new, some might be already familiar to you. An important point, we each have our own personal use patterns and should also have our own specific limits to achieve healthy use. Not everyone is the same, and we all require creative ways to stay balanced when interacting with media and technology. So what have we learned? This brief presentation was meant to get us started thinking about how we interact with technology and media, the pros and cons that come with use and overuse, and how we might maintain a healthy use pattern that fits with our own goals, needs, and interests. Research is continuing to aid us in understanding more about how technology affects us, as tech is rapidly changing and developing each day. We live in the age of entertainment and technology, and it is important for each of us to use what we know about ourselves and our use patterns to inform responsible decisions of when and how to engage with technology and media. This concludes our presentation on unplugging. As this information was meant to get us thinking about our own patterns of media and technology use, you may likely have thoughts, reactions, or questions about the presentation itself or how the content applies to you. If you find that you would like to speak to a professional for assistance in pursuing healthy media use, or if you have any additional interest in learning more about counseling services, we encourage you to call WSU Counseling and Testing Center at 316-978-3440 to schedule an appointment with one of our staff counselors. You can also find us at Grace Wilkie Hall, room 320, as well as online at wichita.edu/counseling-testing. And don't forget to follow us on social media for regular mental health focused tips, events, and encouragements.